could you tell us a bit about your career and a bit about your background?
So I went to medical school in the very, very early 90s, and then trained and did a series of hospital jobs, and then also did actually anatomy as well as an extra. So I taught anatomy to medical students. So I was particularly interested in that, and various different hospital jobs. And then I was a GP for many years. And then taught medical students for about 10 years on top of that as well. So right. Yeah, that's my kind of general background.
And you've also worked in accidents and emergency?
Yeah, that was one of my jobs. Yeah, and ear, nose and throat. So yeah, quite a broad background, as many doctors have before they end up in their final job. We often do quite a lot of different hospital jobs along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, broad training. All right, so let's get to the beginning of the story. Can you just tell us how it started? Because I think you saw something on the internet. You saw some videos which made you curious. So just start us from the beginning and take your time to tell us.
So I have a teenage child, and they're quite good at finding videos and stuff on the internet. And basically, we ended up watching together a video showing some face masks being looked at. And I think they were called, the person that did the video was calling them nano worms, but basically these black worms wriggling in masks. And we ended up watching in particular one man who it was just, there was something about him where I just really felt that whatever this was, he felt genuine to me, that he was genuinely discovering what he was discovering. So I just didn't get any sense of being led astray or someone trying to misinform me. But it was quite low quality, the video, but you could see the kind of shock with what he was finding. And
which is, if I could just stop you 1 second there, if we just describe it for people who don't know what we're talking about, can you just describe precisely what he was finding on what?
Okay, so basically on the ordinary medical or surgical face masks, the single-use face masks, they were basically finding, when you look at those fibers under a microscope of some kind, that there were black, what looked at first to be black fibers, but they weren't, amongst all the white fibers. And they looked still at first, but different people, depending on how they were doing it, from either blowing their warm, wet breath onto the mask, or sometimes from stretching the mask over steamy water or things like this, these then thread-like forms were then moving and appeared very much that they were alive. But these were all quite poor quality videos. And I have to say, I've now got some insight into why that happens. It's not the easiest thing, but I don't know. It went straight to my stomach and I thought, yeah, please, can this not be so? And I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't look the other way. And so my son and I together just went, wait a minute, haven't we got tucked away somewhere that really useless, rubbishy microscope that you got given as a present? And we just got it out.
Just for fun to see if you could replicate what you'd seen on the YouTube video.
I don't know. I guess for me, there was always there wasn't a kind of fun aspect to it. For me, it was, let's hope this isn't the case. Because I don't know, I guess as a medic, I'm already, rather than thinking that's a live squiggly, nanoworm or whatever, I'm thinking differential diagnosis. I'm kind of going through, okay, what different kind of worms could there be? What diseases have I learnt about during my career that are caused by worms? So for me, there's a real seriousness right from the beginning. And then I'm thinking, please, can this not be widespread? Maybe this is just a freak thing, a couple of contaminations or something, you know, maybe it got contaminated while it was sitting around in his house, or, you know. So I thought there was something real about it, but I also really hoped that I wasn't going to see anything. And I put the mask under and straight away found lots of them. And then on that first look, one of them did a really massive movement and actually went from being completely sort of a very straightish linear form into sort of curling like that. And it was just no messing. So bigger than any of those movements that we've seen. You know, there was just no mistaking it. There's no electrostatic or sudden breeze of air or something that could just have done that movement. And I'm not going to repeat what was said around the house actually at that point, because actually it involved a lot of very, very deep and horrifying emotions, really.
Just to show for all the people who've not seen what we're talking about, these black fibers within blue face masks, the surgical masks. Let's just have a look at this little video, this little compilation of ones I just pulled off the internet, and members of Not On The Beeb managed to send me the other day. So thanks to everybody who sent me these to make the compilation from. Let's have a look. So there we go. I mean, that they look like worms to me. They've got the movement of worms. They've got that little kind of way that even kind of earthworms will flick and move around in their body. The worms we see the most, and the other fibers are not moving. And these videos, just to point out, I took all the voices off them, but there's some with American voices, there's some with German voices, there's Eastern European. Yeah. These have been spotted all around the world.
Yeah,
and they're not.
And that's one of the things that really disturbed me as well, because once I started looking and finding different ones, you know, it seemed to be a global thing. And we're in a global situation at the moment, and global increased wearing of masks around the world. And that really, really bothered me. The seriousness of, if there was something wrong with these masks, that this was potentially something that could be on a global scale. I just thought, who's going to look at them? And I just thought, I'm going to have to do it. So I went on the internet and spoke to somebody from a very good microscope company and tried to get specialist advice about a microscope to look through fabrics. And basically we then ended up in a process where the microscope came quite late in the day and started looking at the mask. So we thought, we've got to do this as technically and as good as we can, whilst being really, really clear that I am not a microbiologist and my home is not a lab. But what's the best that I can do in this situation to make it as certain as possible? So my husband brought back 5 different sealed boxes of NHS face masks. So 4 types of the classic blue and white surgical masks and 1 FFP3. And all of those boxes were completely sealed. And then when we did the experiment, you open them up. So you go through first the cardboard layer, and then inside that they were completely sealed plastic packet as well. And like for the FFP3, each individual mask is sealed up.
Yeah, and your husband's a doctor, isn't he? See,
A dentist.
Oh, he's a dentist. Okay.
Yeah. So when we then started the experiment, so I'd got gloves on, had got a clean table, not the one we eat dinner off, and set up as best we could, set up a table that we were going to mark down what we saw. And the very first mask under this crispy clear microscope was absolutely loaded with them, and just felt really sick. This is me just getting from a random dental practice on the NHS. In fact, it's not random, it's a really, really good dental practice. He doesn't own it, so I can say that. And, very, very clean, very good hygiene standards, top ratings and everything. So unopened boxes, and the first one I open and it's covered in stuff. And the first one, before I'd even done any of the breathing or the steaming business, which seems to activate these worms, I thought I'd already saw it moving, the end of one of them. And I'm still struggling with this. 5 out of 5 completely different brands. These weren't even the same brand. I'm sure a lot of NHS places will relate to this, but PPE has come in different kind of batches and come from all over the place for the NHS. But 5 different brands, and every brand had the worms in it, every single one. Now, within that, my original idea was that I was going to do 5 masks of each brand. In the end, I ended up only doing 7 masks in total. So a couple, I had done a couple. So I did 2 of the FFP3, both contaminated. I did 2 of one of the other masks, and one of them I think possibly wasn't contaminated, but I was so tired and working in the dark at that point that I may well have missed it, and I didn't go back and double check that. So wow. I kind of done the odds on this and going, there is no way that coincidence could make all 5 of those contaminated unless there is widespread contamination. So that's why I'm here. I'm just an ordinary person who's, yes, I've got a medical degree, but I'm not a microbiologist, but there's no other medics speaking out about this. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because they're busy and they don't end up seeing these weird videos on the internet, so they don't even know there's a problem. But I've not seen any medics coming forward about this, and I just feel that I've got to say this. But I think for the true meaning of the precautionary principle, which has been misused, I think, over this last year, for the even 1% chance that what I've seen is widespread, we have got to absolutely call to action. Everybody who has access to a microscope, a proper microscope in a lab, needs to look at masks. Everybody who knows somebody who works in a lab needs to tell them. And I want to be wrong. I know I'm not wrong that they're alive, what I've seen, but what I mean is I want to be wrong that it's widespread. I want this to be the most incredible, rare statistic ever, that just me and these other people around the world were unlucky, and that this is not what it appears to be. If this is real, this is so serious. And I'm speaking today because when I spoke to you yesterday, I was waiting to hear back from a professor in microbiology that I'd sent my photos and videos to. And after I spoke to you yesterday, I heard back from him, and he says that in his opinion, and he has got a background knowledge in these as well, that these are flatworms. So from the platyhelminths family of worms. Those don't have a place in masks. And I should also say that these masks were really clean. There was no dust. There were no dead plant and animal cells, you know, as if these masks had been made in a dirty environment and they were just dirty, not clean masks. They're all contaminated in exactly the same way, without anything else.
So let's just clarify that. So if the masks had been made in a factory that was unclean conditions and they'd somehow got contaminated with these worms or parasites, then those masks would have been contaminated with dirt, dust particles, skin particles, and everything else, right? Because you can't just pick up one type of contamination. So what's seen here is there's only the one contamination, which is the parasite. But let's just have a look, because you've taken it to another level. We've seen the videos that are available been around on YouTube, low quality, all amateur, but you took things to another level. You've got a really good microscope, you've got a very good camera, and let's have a look at the footage you got from there.
I don't know how clear this is through the camera, but this is moving.
Oh yeah, yes.
And what's
What's
absolutely clear to me is a cotton fibre that's on the top is not moving at the same time. In my microscope, I've got the field of both, and the cotton fibre is not moving.
We're not breathing on us.
Okay, now we are going to do one gentle breath again to see if it is stimulated by the CO2 or the warmth or the wet. Gentle.
Ready?
Yeah.
Should we do a new video? Should I stop listening to a new video? Starting now.
That breath is happening now. Okay. Okay, and stop. And the breath itself, you'll see, did blow the cotton fibre. But it is carrying on moving after the breath stopped. As you can see, it's still moving now, even after the breath has stopped. And actually, I feel that it's catching one of the cotton fibres now that's laying right over it, because the other cotton fibres aren't moving. Okay.
I've seen it
Let's
move
end
very
that
clearly.
video.
I've just seen it move very clearly. Should we stop?
Yes, thing out.
I think it's videoing now.
It's moving around. No one's breathing on it at the moment at all. The end of it seems to be searching out the bottom end of it.
Okay.
Stop by that. Now stop breathing and let's see what happens. Okay. So that end is just really moving now. So now he's stopped breathing. He's nowhere near it. And you can see how firm the mast fibres are. Nothing's moving apart from this thing. And like I say, the cotton thread where it's crossing over it. Okay, stop.
Okay, so we can see there from those videos the quality that you caught, and we can hear, is that you and your husband's voice in the background on the videos?
Yeah.
So you can kind of hear the discovery there, and you can see the movement, and it's very work. You caught a very kind of with the head moving and kind of twisting upon itself.
Yeah.
Like moving like this, the flatworm. Yeah. So this is, and you can also see, you know, because when I first came across it, everyone was thinking, is it static? Is it a breeze or something? But you can see the other fibres are not moving.
So I am not in any doubt that I have seen living organisms in NHS masks.
And it takes a little moment for that to sink in, doesn't it? I mean, it's just, yeah, it's this. I think this is why you've been on your own, because the cognitive dissonance for everybody will be so high on this. We're all going to presume it's just absolutely not possible. That's the presumption. That's the beta presumption that a product that's been built to create safety could be contaminated in this way. So it would be having the completely opposite effect, well, beyond opposite effect of what it's intended for.
Yeah.
Which is sinister. It's sinister beyond words.
Yeah. And because there is this chance, you know, this chance that this is exceptional wrongdoing. There is a chance that there is exceptional wrongdoing involved. Because as I said, why, if this is just a dirty, dirty factory, why is there not dirt on them? I don't want to be the only one that's looking at these under proper microscopes. I want people who are specialists in parasitology looking at these. And if they see them and they think, oh, I'm not sure, these are probably dead, they're not moving, make a presumption that I could be telling the truth and these other people could be telling the truth, and just stay with it and try everything you can with your growth mediums and everything else to see, is there a chance these are dormant organisms that come to life when someone puts this mask on their face, and that their carbon dioxide and their warmth and their wetness activates these worms.